Namastu Avidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman protect us. May he guide us and give us strength and right understanding. May love and harmony be with us all. Peace, peace, peace.
Well, good evening, Swami.
Good evening.
We're continuing, I think, where we...
Yes, we were just reading a little summary of Sri Ramakrishna's life.
In a section called, what, Saints?
It was, great saviors of the world.
The superluminaries and the prophets.
And then there's a section at the end of this book on sayings of Ramakrishna, so I've copied some of those for us tonight, so we can continue with the Ramakrishna theme for a little while. All right, so we're on page 188, and I think it's volume 5.
Yes.
I think so. All right, and we've just been going through a summary of Sri Ramakrishna's life where he was practicing the various faiths. And this paragraph starts out by saying, by practicing all these various kinds of sadhana, Sri Ramakrishna realized the ideals of all sectarian religions. He discovered that the goal of each of them was the one infinite being called by various names.
Now there's another one of these marvelous sentences. He turned out the light, it glows in the dark. Read it again, Swami.
He discovered that the goal of each of them was the one infinite being called by various names. That all sectarian religions were like so many paths which lead to the same God. Thus he verified the saying of Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, "Whosoever comes to me through whatever path, I reach him." All men are struggling in different paths, which ultimately lead to me. And that's the end of the quote from the Gita. The various religions of the world are like rivers, which, rising from different sources, run crooked or straight and fall into one ocean. Even so, the sectarian religions among various nations, rising from different standpoints, run crooked or straight into the infinite ocean of Sat Chit Ananda.
Why don't I go on for a while then?
Okay.
This grand truth, in capital T, of the Sanatana. Now that Sanatana means eternal. Hindu religion, or pervasive. The Sanatana Dharma is everybody else's religion, pretty much. After you separate out with a ladle, nice ladle, the religions of Judaism, that is to say, what developed into Judaism as Abraham left Ur in the land of the Chaldees, you see, on a peripatetic nomadic journey. He was tending cattle, seeking for the land that had been promised him by God in a covenant and an internal experience. So, we have here this idea that also Zoroastrianism, a prelude, you might say, not that far from Hinduism in some respects, certainly the language is Sanskrit, very full, is developing the particular qualities that we're so familiar with in the grand tree that has possibly one trunk, one set of roots, which have, like the Bodhi tree out here, developed into 3 separate kinds of trunks coming out of the one stem. And that would be the religion of Abraham, with its variations on the theme, according to this point of view, Christianity and Islam. So all the other religions, the earlier ones, and they're still here, that relate to the inward experience as being primary, says the ground truth of the Sanatana Hindu religion was realized by Sri Ramakrishna in this age through sadhana practice. Having finished his sadhana, in italics, he proclaimed his message and gave to the world the fruits of his own experience and realization. Wow, powerful. Pundits and scholars of every nationality, as well as hundreds of devout men and women of all sects, came to see him and listen to his original and wonderful teachings. Using the commonest occurrences of everyday life as illustrations, Sri Ramakrishna succeeded in making the dull minds of worldly people grasp the spiritual depth, beauty, and grandeur of his sublime ideals. Let's play text.
Have we not watched with admiration when the followers of all the great religions of the world recognized in Sri Ramakrishna their divine ideals? Have we not seen how Quakers and Orthodox Christians knelt and prayed before him and worshipped him as the Christ when Bhagavan went into superconscious communion with the Heavenly Father after hearing the holy name of Jesus of Nazareth? The Mohammedan saints who came to see him prostrated at his holy feet and recognized in him the highest ideals of Islam. The Buddhist regarded him as Sambuddha, the enlightened. The followers of Chaitanya, like Vaishnavacharan and other and others, worshipped him as the second prophet of Nadia when Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna occupied the altar which was reverentially dedicated to Sri Chaitanya by hundreds of devoted Vaishnavas, who always prostrated before that altar and prayed to their Lord Gauranga.
The worshippers of Sri Krishna saw in him the manifestation of the divine qualities of the Lord of Vrindavan. The devotees of the Divine Mother of the Universe saw that she was playing through him, capital S. The followers of Shiva declared that Sri Ramakrishna was their living deity, while the Sikhs, the faithful votaries of Guru Nanaka, regarded him as their holy master. His followers, seeing all these powers, marveled at his greatness and believed that his many-sided personality was the living example and the consummation of all the previous avatars, we're calling them superluminaries, and divine manifestations. And the truth of this was again and again verified, capital T, and confirmed by his, as well as by his own words. Quote, he who was Rama, Krishna, Christ, Buddha, Chaitanya, has now become Ramakrishna, in quotes. That's a survey. Part of that was literal words. Bhagavan was always, that means Lord, was always conscious of this truth and spoke of it before the world, as well as before his dearest disciples, as his divine personality was many-sided, yet one. So was his great mission. It was to show the underlying unity in the variety of religions and to establish that universal religion of which sectarian religions are each but partial expressions. Like all other saviors, the life of the Bhagavan exemplifies his mission.
In this age of scientific rationalism, Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna has shown to the world how the Lord of the universe can be realized and attained in this life. And no one except him has ventured to go through all the tests of skeptics and agnostics to prove that he had attained to God consciousness. Those who have seen him, lived for years with him, and watched him by day and night, have proclaimed before the world that he was the embodiment of the highest spiritual ideals given in all the scriptures of the different nations of the world. Salutations.
Would you like to read the Sanskrit, Swami?
Well, this is the translation.
Oh,
it's a poem by Abhedananada on Ramakrishna.
Oh, right.
Salutations to Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna, the perfect embodiment of the eternal truth. which manifests itself in various forms to help mankind, and the incarnation of the Supreme Lord, who is worshipped by all. Hari Om Tat Sat.
Now, what is chapter 1? Chapter 1 of this same book?
No, this is the book Sayings of Sri Ramakrishna.
And what volume?
The same volume, but just towards the end of the book.
How could it be chapter 1?
It's towards the end of volume 5 of the complete works. But in the complete works, they include all these little books that they published. And one of the little books was the Sayings of Sri Ramakrishna.
All right. Well, let's see where we go here. Let's see. Yes, these are lovely. Quote in italics, will you be able to practice as much as I tell you? If you live up to 1/16th part of what I say unto you, you will surely reach the goal. And this is under the bold type God, G-O-D, and then capitals and subcapitals, subtitle, Existence of God. 1. You see many stars at night in the sky, but find them not when the sun rises. Can you say that there are no stars in the heaven by day? So, O man, because you behold not God in the days of your ignorance, say not that there is no God. 2. Many are the names of God, and infinite the forms that lead us to know Him. In whatsoever name or form you desire to call Him, in that very form and name you will see Him. And then with these, kind of upper and lowercase capital letters or capital letters, oneness of God. 3. As one and the same material water is called by different names by different peoples, one calling it water, another eau, E-A-U, French, a third aqua, Latin, another pani, I guess that's Muslim. So the one Satchitananda, the everlasting intelligence, knowledge, bliss, is invoked by some as God, by some as Allah, by some as Jehovah, by some as Hari, and by others as Brahman. 4. In a potter's shop there are vessels of different shapes and forms, pots, jars, dishes, plates, etc., but all are made of one clay. So God is one, but is worshipped in different ages and climes under different names and aspects.
The planets, even though they're not stars, kind of illustrate that principle. If you know where the planet is, or you've got it in your telescope before sunrise, you can follow it even during the day, even though you can't see it up there, but you can see it through the telescope.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Don't get too close to the sun with the telescope. Right. Fascinating. Well, now that's a new thing. Okay, sorry.
God's aspects many. 5. Question. If in all the religious systems of the world there reigns the same God, then why does the same God appear different when viewed in different light by different religions? Answer. God is one, but many are his aspects. As one master of the house appears in various aspects, being father to one, brother to another, and husband to a third, so one God is described and called in various ways according to the particular aspect in which he appears to his particular worshipper. 6. As one can ascend to the top of a house by means of a ladder or a bamboo or staircase or a rope, so diverse are the ways and means to approach God, and every religion is in the world shows one of these ways.
All creeds paths to God. Now this is a rather long one. 7. Different creeds are but different paths to reach the Almighty with a capital A. Various and different are the ways that lead to the temple of Mother Kali at Kalighat near Calcutta. See, Calcutta is derived from Kalighat. Similarly, various are the ways that lead to the house of the Lord. Every religion is nothing but one of such paths that lead to God. 8. As one with gold, various ornaments are made. As with one gold, various ornaments are made, having different forms and names. So one and the same God is worshipped in different countries and ages under different forms and names. Though he may be worshipped in accordance with different conceptions and modes, some loving him as Father, others as Mother, some calling him Friend, others calling him the Beloved, some praying to him as the inmost treasure of their hearts, calling him the sweet little child, yet it is one and the same God that is being worshipped in all these relations and modes. 9. The young wife in a family shows her love and respect to her father-in-law, mother-in-law, and every other member of the family, and at the same time loves her husband more than these. Similarly, being firm in thy devotion to the deity, capital D, of thine own choice, Ishtadevata, chosen ideal, do not despise other deities, but honor them all. 10. Bow down and worship where others kneel. For where so many have been paying the tribute of adoration, the kind Lord must manifest himself, for he is all mercy. As the same sugar is made into various figures of birds and beasts, so that the one divine mother is worshipped in various climes and ages under various names and forms.
God with form and formless. 12. Two persons were hotly disputing as to the color of a chameleon. One said, quote, "The chameleon on that palm tree is of a beautiful red color." The other, contradicting him, said, "You are mistaken. The chameleon is not red but blue." But not being able to settle the matter by arguments, both went to the person who always lived under that tree and had watched the chameleon in all its phases of color. One of them said, "Sir, is not the chameleon on that tree of a red color?" The person replied, "Oh, yes, sir." The other disputant said, "What do you say? How is it? It is not red, it is blue." That person again humbly replied, "Yes, sir." The person knew that the chameleon is an animal that constantly changes color. Thus it was that he said yes to both of these conflicting statements. The Satchitananda likewise has many forms. The devotee who has seen God in one aspect only knows him in that aspect alone. But he who has seen him in manifold aspects is alone in a position to say, quote, "All these forms are of one God, and God is multiform," unquote. He is formless and with form, and many are his forms, which no one knows. 13. Fire itself has no definite shape, but in glowing embers it assumes certain forms. The formless fire is then endowed with forms. Similarly, the formless God sometimes invests himself with definite forms. 14. So long as the sound of a bell is audible, it exists in the region of form. But when it is no longer heard, it has become formless. Similarly, God is both with form and formless.
And then they discuss the nature of Brahman. 15. Question. What is the nature of Brahman? Brahman is without attributes, unchangeable, immovable, and firm like Mount Meru. I'll leave off the numbers for now. His name is Divine Intelligence, Chinmaya. His abode is intelligence, and he, the Lord, is all intelligence. The Lord can pass an elephant through the eye of a needle. He can do whatever he likes. As the sun is many times larger than the earth, but the distance make it look like a very small disk, about 1,000,000 times larger. So the Lord is infinitely great, but being too far away from him, we fail to comprehend his real greatness. God is the absolute eternal Brahman, as well as the Father of the universe. The indivisible Brahman, or pure existence dash intelligence dash bliss with capital letters, is like a vast shoreless ocean without bounds and limits, in which I only struggle and sink. But when I approach the always supportive personal deity, Hari, I get peace.
Sportive, I think it is. Always sportive.
Always sportive, of course, thank you. Because the always supportive personal deity, Hari, I get peace like the sinking man who finds the shore.
Personal and impersonal God. As water, when congealed, becomes ice, so the visible form of the Almighty is the condensed manifestation of the all-pervading formless Brahman. It may be called, in fact, Satchidananda solidified. As ice is part and parcel of water, remains water, and afterwards melts into it, so the personal God is part and parcel of the impersonal. He rises from the impersonal, remains there, and ultimately merges into it and disappears. God is formless, and God is with form too, and he is that which transcends both form and formlessness. He alone can say what else he is. At a certain stage in his path of devotion, the devotee finds satisfaction in God with form. At another stage, in God without form. The God with form is visible. Nay, we can see him face to face, as with one's dearest friend. As the same fish is dressed into soup, curry, or cutlet, and each has his own choice dish of it, so the Lord of the universe, though one, manifests himself differently, or as many, according to different likings of his worshippers. And each one of these has his own view of God, which he values the most. To some, he is a kind master, or a loving father, or a sweet, smiling mother, or a devoted friend, and to others a faithful husband, or a dutiful and obliging son.
What Maya and Brahman? 25. Question. What is the relation between Maya and Brahman? Maya can be compared to a snake that is active and moving, while Brahman is like a snake absolutely still. Maya is the name of the manifested powers of the absolute and immovable reality, capital R, which is called Brahman. Falling in the meshes of phenomena, that's the seeming appearances of the outer world, the ever blissful Brahman appears to weep and wail. In the course of the instructions to his disciples, the Guru raised two fingers by which he meant the duality of Brahman and Maya. Then, lowering one finger, he taught him that when Maya vanishes, nothing of the universe remains but the one absolute Brahman. Who could have realized the absolute Brahman if there were no Maya and her manifestations? Okay.
Brahman cannot be described by words. Question. Can Brahman be described? Answer. It cannot be explained by words. As a man called upon to give an idea of the ocean to a person who has never seen it can only say, it is a vast sheet of water, a big expanse of water. It is water, water all around. So one who has realized Brahman can only say, Brahman is everywhere. He who tries to give an idea of God by mere book learning is like the man who tries to give an idea of Kashi, Varanasi, by means of a map or picture.
That's the Benares.
Benares would be another way to do that. Yeah. The Vedas, Tantras, and the Puranas, and all the sacred scriptures of the world have become as if defiled, as food thrown out of the mouth becomes polluted. because they have been constantly repeated by and have come out of the human mouths. But Brahman, or the Absolute, has never been defiled, for no one as yet has been able to express it by human speech.
Why not continue for a minute or two? Please continue.
God with and without attributes. At one time I am clothed, at another naked. So Brahman is at one time with attributes, and at another without. God is like unto a hill of sugar. A small ant carries away from it a small grain of sugar. A bigger one takes from it a considerably larger grain, but the hill remains as large as before. So are the devotees of God. They become ecstatic with even a grain of the one divine attribute. No one can contain within him all his attributes.
All right, now where are you, brother? Yes.
Top of the page.
Uh-huh.
God is infinite. The creature or jiva is a finite being. How then can the finite grasp the infinite? That was a question, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Answer. It is
called Buddha, the Light of Asia. And in discussing this salt doll image, he gave the idea that the doll was lost. However, we were given to understand that the doll was not lost, because Vedanta talks about a plenum, a fullness. Buddhist talks about God is no thing, you see, nothing, no thing, but a void, everything else but the spirit. So the mistake was that the salt doll was lost. But what happened was she realized she always was the ocean. Mm-hmm. That's the important part. Now it's interesting that Vedanta of all people should be, all right. So is that it? Have you finished 35? No, not yet. Okay.
As a piece of lead thrown into a basin of mercury soon becomes dissolved, so the individual soul melts away, losing its limitations when it falls into the ocean of Brahman.
Losing its limitations. Relation between individual ego and Supreme Spirit. Question. What is the relation between the individual ego, Jivatman, Jiva meaning the seeming individual self, and the spirit, and the Supreme Spirit in capital letters, Paramatman? When a plank of wood is stretched across a current of water, the water seems to be divided in two. So the indivisible appears divided into two by the limitations, upadi, of Maya. In fact, they are one and the same. The soul enchained is man, in quotes, Jiva, and free from chains is God, in quotes, Shiva. 38. The water and its bubble are one. The bubble has its birth in the water, floats on the water, and ultimately is resolved into water. So the individual ego, Jivatman, and the Supreme Spirit, Paramatman, are one and the same. The difference is in the degree. The one is finite, small. The other is infinite. The one is dependent. The other independent. I'm going to let you go because that's one of those wonderful sentences again.
So long as one is not blessed with the divine vision, so long as the base metal is not turned into gold by touching the philosopher's stone, there will be the delusion of, quote, I am the doer. And so long must there necessarily remain the idea of the distinction between I have done this good work and I have done that bad work. This idea of duality or distinction is Maya, which is responsible for the continuance of the world current. By taking Vijaya Maya, Maya having preponderance, the Maya having preponderance of sattva, which follows the adoption of the right path, one can reach him. He alone crosses the ocean of Maya who comes face to face with God, who realizes him. He is truly free, living in this body, who knows that God is the doer and the non-doer. What is the nature of the union of the Jivatman, the human soul, and the Paramatman, Supreme Spirit? It is like the union of the hour and the minute hands at 12 o'clock. God is in all men, but all men are not in God. That is the reason why they suffer.
God is related to man. God is related to man as magnet is to iron. Why does not then God attract man? As iron thickly embedded in mud is not moved by the attraction of the magnet, so the soul, deeply embedded in Maya, feels not the attraction of the Lord, is washed away with water, and the iron is free to move. So when the soul, by constant tears of prayer and repentance, washes away the mud of Maya that makes it cleave to the earth, it is soon attracted by the Lord. The magnetic needle always points toward the north, and hence it is that the sailing vessel does not lose her course. So long as the heart of man is directed toward God, he cannot be lost in the ocean of worldliness. The lodestone rock, hidden under the sea, attracts the ship sailing over it, draws out all its iron nails, separates plank from plank, and sinks the vessel into the sea. The magnet of God consciousness attracts the human soul. It destroys in a moment man's sense of earthly personality and selfishness, and plunges the God's infinite love. As a lamp does not burn without oil, God's infinite love. As a lamp does not burn without oil, so man cannot live without God.
Yearning for God. Verily, verily, I say unto you, who yearns for God finds him. He finds God quickest, whose yearning and concentration are the greatest. Like unto a miser that longeth after gold, let thy heart pant after him. Men weep rivers of tears because a sin is not born to them. Others wear away their hearts with sorrow because they cannot get riches. But how many are there who weep and sorrow because they have not seen God? He finds who seeks him. He who with intense longing weeps for God has found God. As the child beseeches its mother with importunities for toys and pice, weeping and teasing her, so he who knows God to be his nearest and dearest, his own, and who, like an innocent child, weeps inwardly with earnestness to see him, is rewarded at last with the vision of divine beauty. God can no longer remain hidden from such an earnest and importunate seeker after him. Verily, verily, I say unto thee, he who longs for him finds him. Go and verify this in thine own life. Try for 3 consecutive days with genuine earnestness, and thou art sure to succeed. I must attain to perfection in this life. Yea, in 3 days I must find God. Nay, with a single utterance of his name I will draw him unto me. With such a violent love the Lord is attracted soon. The lukewarm lovers take ages to go to him, if at all. What offering is required to attain to God? To find God, thou must offer him thy body, mind, and riches.
This is an interesting one that one remembers. Search after God. A thief enters a dark room and feels the various articles therein. He lays his hand upon a table, perhaps, and saying, "Not this," neti, passes on. He comes in contact with some other article, dash, a chair perhaps, dash, and again saying, not this. He continues his search, till leaving article after article, he finally lays his hand on the box containing the treasure. Then he exclaims, it's here. And there his search ends. Such is indeed the search after Brahman. Adopt adequate means for the end you seek to attain. You cannot get butter by crying yourself hoarse, saying, there is butter in the milk. If you wish to make butter, turn the milk into its curds and churn it well, and then you will get butter. So if you seek to see God, practice spiritual sadhana, practice devotional exercises, he says, and impresses, and then you will see God. What is the good of merely crying, oh God, oh God? With an exclamation point. Be deluded in the Supreme Spirit. Meditate on God either in an unknown corner or in the solitude of forests or within your own mind. Question, should we pray aloud to God? Pray unto him in any way you like, for he can hear even the footfall of an ant. So long as a man calls aloud, Allah-ho, Allah-ho, oh God, be sure that he has not yet found his Allah, God. For he who has found him becomes quiet and full of peace. They say like a bee sipping the honey in the nectar. 60. Question. Where is the Lord and how is he to be found? There is pearl in the deep sea. But one must hazard all perils to get it. So is the Lord in this world. If a single dive into the sea does not bring to you the pearl, do not conclude that the sea is without pearls. Dive again and again, and you are sure to be rewarded in the end. So if your first attempt to see God proves fruitless, do not lose heart. Persevere in the attempt, and you're sure to obtain divine grace at last. 62. How may we find our God? The angler, anxious to hook a big and beautiful rohita fish, waits calmly for hours together, having thrown the bait and the hook into the water and watching patiently until the bait is caught by the fish. Similarly, the devotee who patiently goes on with his devotion is sure at last to find his God.
How to see God? Question. If God is omnipresent, why do we not see him? Answer. Standing by the bank of a pool, thickly overspread with scum and weeds, you will say that there is no water in it. If you desire to see the water, remove the scum from the surface. With eyes covered with the film of Maya, you complain that you cannot see God. If you wish to see him, remove the film of Maya from your eyes. As the cloud covers the sun, so Maya conceals the deity. When the cloud moves away, the sun is seen. So when Maya is removed, God becomes visible. As fish playing in a pond covered with reeds and scum cannot be seen from outside, so God plays in the hearts of a man invisibly, being screened by Maya from human view. God cannot be seen as long as there is the slightest taint of desire. Therefore, have thy small desires satisfied and renounce the big desires by right reasoning and discrimination. None can enter the kingdom of heaven if there be the least trace of desire in him, just as a thread can never enter in the eye of a needle if there are any slight detached fibers at its end.
If there be any slight detached fiber at its end. Yeah.
To approach a monarch, one must ingratiate oneself with the officials who keep the gate and surround the throne. So, to reach the Almighty, one must practice many devotions, as well as serve many devotees and keep company of the wise. The intoxication of hemp is not to be had by repeating the word hemp. Get the hemp, rub it with water into a solution, and drink it, and you will get intoxicated. What is the use of loudly crying, "O God, O God"? Regularly practice, and verily you shall see him, see God.
So why don't you talk about this one too, Swami? In the name of the Lord, why don't you do that?
Oh, you want me to?
Yeah, I do.
Real and the unreal. Consciously or unconsciously, in whatever way one falls into the trough of nectar, one becomes immortal. Similarly, whosoever utters the name of the deity voluntarily or involuntarily finds immortality in the end. It is the nature of the lamp to give light. With its help, some may cook food, some may forge a deed, and the third may read the word of God. So with the help of the Lord's name, some try to attain salvation, others try to serve their evil purposes, and so on. His holy name, however, remains unaffected. Knowingly or unknowingly, consciously or unconsciously, in whatever state we utter God's name, we acquire the merit of such an utterance. As a man who voluntarily goes to a river and bathes therein gets the benefit of the bath, so does he too who has been pushed into the water by another, or who, when sleeping soundly, has water thrown upon him.
He who has seen the Lord, the truly wise man is he who has seen the Lord. He becomes like a child. The child, no doubt, seems to have an ahankara, or an egoism of its own. But that egoism is a mere appearance. It's not a selfish egotism. The self of a child is nothing like the self of a grown-up man. The self, aham, of the child, is again like the face reflected in the mirror. The face in the mirror looks exactly like the real face, only it does nobody any harm. 77. Question: will all men see God? No man will remain in total fast. Some get their food at 9 a.m., others at noon, others at 2 p.m., and others in the evening at sunset. Similarly, at some time or other, in this life or after many lives, all will see God. God revealeth himself. The watchman can see with a dark lantern, bullseye, everyone on whom he throws his rays, but no one can see him, so long as he does not turn the light upon himself. So does God see every one, but no one seeth him until the Lord revealeth himself to one in his mercy. Question: why can we not see Divine Mother? A. She is like a high-born Hindu lady transacting all her business from behind the screen, seeing all but seen by none. Her devout sons only see her by going near her behind the screen of Maya. A mother has several children. To one she is given a bit of coral, to another a doll, and to a third some sweets. And thus, absorbed in their playthings, they all forget their mother, and she in the meantime, goes on with her household work. But among them, the child who throws away his playthings and cries after the mother, "Mama, dear Mama," she runs quickly to him, takes him in her arms and caresses him. So, O man, you have forgotten your Divine Mother, absorbed in the vanities of the world. But when you throw them off, crying after her, she will come at once and take you up in her arms. O heart! Call out truly to thy Almighty Mother, and thou shalt see how she will come quickly running to thee. When one calls out to God with all one's heart and soul, he can no longer remain unmoved.
God accepts humblest offering. The landlord may be very rich, but when a poor Riot brings...
No, there's something missing there, don't you think?
I don't know.
I bet you there is, because
Could
there's
be.
a space.
Yes.
So we better check that. Let's see if maybe somebody can help us. Okay.
brings a humble present to him with a loving heart, he accepts it with great pleasure.
The greatest pleasure.
Let's see, did I bring the original book in? No, I didn't. Yes, I did. Okay. Let's see, 476. Yeah, there were little loose pieces of paper that kept getting on the copy machine, so maybe it got covered.
I think so.
Nope.
What is it, RYOT?
RYOT.
Okay,
that's all there is. That's all they wrote.
I still think there might be another.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so the Almighty God, though so great and powerful, accepts the humblest offerings of a sincere heart with the greatest pleasure and kindness. Howsoever far may be the fish in a pond, when sweet, attractive, and savory bait is thrown into the water, they soon hasten to that point from all quarters. Similarly, the Lord quickly approaches the holy devotee whose heart is full of devotion and faith. God's advent in the human heart. Question: what are the indications of God's advent in the human heart? Answer: as the dawn heralds the rising sun, so unselfishness, purity, and righteousness precede the advent of the Lord. A king, before going to the house of a servant to receive hospitality there, sends from his stores the necessary seats, ornaments, articles of food, etc., to the servant, so that this latter may properly receive and honor his master. So before the Lord cometh, he sendeth love, reverence, and faith into the yearning heart of the devotee.
God vision. Question: in what condition of the mind does God vision take place? A. This is seen when the mind is tranquil. When the mental sea is agitated by the wind of desires, it cannot reflect God, and then God vision is impossible. So long as the heavenly expanse of the heart is troubled and disturbed by the gusts of desire, there is little chance of our beholding therein the brightness of God. The beatific vision occurs only in the heart which is calm and wrapped in divine communion. 88, and that's capital D, capital C. 88. God is attained when man reaches maturity in either of these three states. 1. All this am I. 2. All this art thou. 3. Thou art the master, and I the servant. And then 89, as a woman who is fully devoted to her husband is called sati, chaste, and obtains the love of her Lord, so the man who is fully devoted to his special deity, capital D, obtains God. Okay.
He who hath beheld God doeth no evil. The steel sword is turned into a golden sword by the touch of the philosopher's stone, and though it retains its former form, it becomes incapable of injuring anyone like the steel sword. Similarly, the outward form of the man who has touched the feet of the Almighty is not changed, but he no longer doeth any evil. The Lord he has seen, and he is now a changed being. So long as a man is far away from the market, he hears only a loud and indistinct buzzing sound like ho, ho. But when he enters the marketplace, he no longer hears the uproar, but perceives distinctly that someone is bargaining for potato, another for brinjal, and so on. As long as a man is far away from God, so long is he in the midst of the buzzing noise and confusion of reasoning, argument, and discussion. But when he approaches God, then ceases all reasoning, argument, and discussion, and he understands the mysteries of God with clear and vivid perception.
All right. Seer of God unaffected by the world. 93. In the play of hide and seek, if the player succeeds in touching the non-player, who is called the Goldam, he is no longer bereaved. He is no longer liable to be made a thief by the seeker. Similarly, by once seeing the Almighty, a man is no longer bound down by the fetters of the world. Just as the person touching the buri is free to go about wherever he chooses without being pursued and made a thief, so also in this world's playground there is no fear for him who has touched the feet of the Almighty. He attains freedom from all worldly cares and anxieties, and nothing can ever bind him again. Milk mixes readily with water when brought into contact with it. Converted into butter, however, and it no longer mixes with the water, but floats upon it. So when the soul once attains the state of God, it may live in constant and hourly contact with innumerable unregenerate souls, but will not at all be affected by their evil association. Iron, if once converted into gold by the touch of the philosopher's stone, may be kept under the ground or thrown into a rubbish heap. It always remains gold and will never return to its former condition. Similar is the state of him who has at heart touched even once the feet of the Almighty. Whether he dwells in the bustle of the world or in the solitude of the forest, nothing will ever contaminate him. Okay.
He who knows God is indifferent to worldly pleasures.
You know what? I think we're going to skip this because it's a little bit detailed.
Sure.
And how about up to knowledge and love of God?
Sure, sounds good. Knowledge and love of God are ultimately one and the same. There is no difference between pure knowledge and pure love. The knowledge of God, jnana, may be likened to a man, while the love of God, bhakti, is like a woman. Knowledge has entered up to the outer rooms of God, but no one can enter the inner apartments, the zenana of God, save love, which has access into the mysteries of the Almighty. Shiva and Shakti, the absolute and the energy, are both necessary for creation. With dry clay, no potter can make a vessel when water is necessary. So Shiva alone cannot create without Shakti or energy.
We're coming now to the peroration, the summation, so the crescendo. So why don't you continue on to the next one, please?
As a toy fruit or a toy elephant reminds one of the real fruit and the living animal, so do the images worshipped remind one of God who is formless and eternal. Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna, addressing Keshav Chandra Sen, who was a great iconoclast in his day, said, "Why do these images raise the idea of mud and clay, stone and straw in your mind? Why can you not realize the presence of the eternal, blissful, all-conscious Mother, even in these forms? Know these images to be concretized forms of the eternal and formless essence of all sentiency." If a man thinks of the images of gods and goddesses as symbols of the divinity, he reaches the divinity. But if he considers them as mere idols made of stone, straw, and clay, to him the worship of these images produces no good.
God in everything. The Master said everything that exists is God. The pupil understood it literally, but not in the right spirit. While he was passing through the street, he met an elephant. The driver, the mahout, shouted aloud from his high place, "Move away!" The pupil argued in his mind, "Why should I move away? I am God, so is the elephant God. What fear has God from himself?" Thinking thus, he did not move. At last, the elephant took him up in his trunk and dashed him aside. He was hurt severely, and going back to his master, related the whole adventure. The master said, "All right, you are God. The elephant is God also. But God, in the shape of the elephant driver, was warning you from above. Why did you not pay heed to his warning?" We cannot say that God is gracious because he feeds us, for every father is bound to supply his children with food. But when he keeps us from going astray and holds us back from temptations, then he is truly gracious. Okay.
Man's redemption. It is the nature of the child to soil itself with dirt and mud. But the mother does not allow it to remain dirty always. She washes it from time to time. So it is the nature of man to commit sin, but sure as it is that he commits sin, it is doubly sure that the Lord creates means for his redemption. The darkness of centuries is dispersed at once as soon as a light is brought into the room. The accumulated sins of innumerable births vanish before a single gracious glance of the Almighty. God within man. Pointing to the heart, the Bhagavan used to say, "He who has it here has it also there," pointing to the external world. He who does not find God within himself will never find him outside himself. But he who sees him in the temple of his soul sees him also in the temple of the universe.
What a finale.
And that is the end of that particular section.
Now, Swami, you may gonna have to give us more pages next time. You know what I'm saying?
All right, we'll close with a chant.
That's a relevant question. You guys want to answer?
Oh.
Our religions and...
Well, you can ask it. I don't know whether we can answer it.
This time.
If all paths lead to the same God, why do all the different philosophies, like Vedanta, Dvaita Vedanta, Vishishta Dvaita, fight over each other? Why religion fight? Why religion fight?
Because people like to find petty little differences when they should be looking for unity. It's a play. I mean, it's like, why do people have sport games when they battle against each other? They just enjoy it. So the philosophers, that's what philosophers enjoy. They enjoy finding little differences in things. But, you know, Vivekananda and Ramakrishna said that they were really, you know, just three different ways of looking at the same thing. And Vivekananda, when he was talking about how they're all supposed to argue their position from the Vedas and the Upanishads and the scriptures. And he says each of the schools of philosophy torture the texts so that it looks like they only validate their viewpoint and not the others. And so the idea is that when you look at the Vedas, you find reasons to see some validity in all of those different paths, but they're trying to describe something that, as it says in the beginning, Brahman's beyond words. And you're not going to.
And India ideally has been quite the opposite of the West in this regard. Why don't you just read that last sentence again, Swami? The ending sentence. It's such a crescendo.
But he who sees him in the temple of his soul sees him also in the temple of the universe. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Om Purnamada Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Filled with Brahman are the things we see. Filled with Brahman are the things we see not. From out of Brahman floweth all that is. From Brahman all, yet is it still the same. Om, peace, peace, peace.